So Danai, can you put the first slides of my presentation, maybe?
Yes, of course.
Is this the one?
Yes, but not in the presentation mode.
I don't recognize the first one. I mean, maybe it's like an intro that...
Yes, you'll see it.
Okay.
The next slide.
So should we wait a few minutes or should we start?
I think let's start.
Let's start. So I see there are lots of people joining. So welcome everyone to today's webinar. My name is Anastasia Giotti. I am a postdoctoral researcher at Harokopio University at the Geography Department in Athens. Harokopio University is a partner of the EU-funded project BIOTRAILS, and this is the fourth Transformative Change seminar that we are organizing within our cluster of Transformative Change projects. We are hosting this seminar together with our colleagues from White Research, Danai Antonaki and Ioanna Nidrioti, and with support from the Ecosystem Services Partnership, which has a task force for training and education. So Carla, Lian Washburn, to whom I will give the word in a few minutes, will tell us a few more words about the ESP. And I would also like to inform you that this webinar is recorded, so if you have any objections, please let us know. A few words about our group of European projects, which is funded under the Transformative Change Cluster call. This was a call that was launched for 4 consecutive years in the period 2021-2024, and joint activities have been an integral part of our of all the projects roadmap. This seminar series is an example of what we have been trying to come up together in terms of knowledge exchange networks. Can you change this? You have already started it. No, you can go before. The 7 Horizon projects that have helped in shaping and organizing this seminar series, you can see them here. It's BioTrails, CircHive, TC4B, Planet4B, Selena, Mosaic, and BioNext. And in the previous 3 webinars, we have dealt with conceptual foundations of transformative change, methodological tools, and case study examples for the study of transformative change. And you can register to our Learning and Action Alliances platform in the BioTrails website. And you can find all the presentations and the recordings of the past seminars in the Learn With Us section. You can also find them at YouTube, so the past recordings of the past 2 seminars are on YouTube. I think we can share the link in the chat if you want, the links of the Learning and Action Alliances and the YouTube recordings so that you can have access to them. So before moving with the agenda for today, I would like to make 2 announcements that concern these joint activities that we are developing with sister projects. So if you can change the slide. The first one is, I'm just happy to announce that we have proposed a special issue on transformative change notes from the field, as we call it, and this has been accepted in the Global Environmental Change Journal. This is a joint effort of BioTrails, TC4B, and BioNext. The issue will be launched in a few weeks' time, and our 3 scientific editors will welcome manuscripts that can contribute to the synthesis of our work on transformative change. If you can change the slide. The second announcement concerns, it's an open call for contributions for our special session. This will take place during our closing event at the end of November. Specific dates will come out very soon. But the idea here is to inform you about the concept of the session, which has been designed to include both projects that reach a maturity or the end, and the new kids on the block of the transformative change. So we want to know each other and to get to know our common challenges and our ideas forward, and then work together towards identifying what needs to be kept as most impactful, how to keep it, and how to potentially communicate what we have all learned with policymakers through an ambitious attempt to write a policy brief draft together. So as I said, the dates will come out soon, and you will be informed about this. So this is for our cluster activities. Let's move with the structure of today's seminar. Thank you. Besides the intro on the ESP from Carla, the agenda includes 5 main presentations that will last 15 minutes each. So we will have around 12 minutes of presentation and 2 or 3 minutes of Q&A. So I would ask all presenters to respect this time so that we can have plenty of room for discussion. Any questions to the presenters can be expressed in the chat, and I will be transferring the questions to them. The theme of today, as you all know, is tools for transformative change, and we will showcase a number of exciting practical approaches developed by 4 different Horizon projects. First, we have Ilkom Soliv and Alex Franklin, who will guide us through the Pathbreak and the Biodiversity Engagement Platform developed at Planet 4B to foster collaboration. Then we have Sotiris Kotaridis, who will present the ESG Biodiversity Toolkit for Companies that BioTrails has developed. Anne-Catherine Vogel from the CircHive project will give us an overview of the ideal framework for biodiversity as applied in the food and textile sector. And Frini Lazaru from BioTrails again will present the scenario visualization tool for exploring transformative change pathways. And our last talk will be from Paul Mahoney on AI-enabled access to research outputs as developed by BIONEXT. So without further delay, I will now give the floor to Carl-Jan Washburn, who is co-leading the Education and Training Working Group at the Ecosystem Services Partnership. Carla, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Let me quickly bring up the slides. I only have a couple to speak to, but yes, thank you for the invitation to speak just now, and I'm looking forward to hearing the other presenters. I hope that you can see this okay. So I'm going to very, very quickly introduce the Ecosystem Services Partnership, and particularly the Education and Training Task Force, which we hope will be of interest to people in the room. And as I say, I'm around for the rest of the session, so do feel free to drop me a message in the chat if you'd like to. I'm based at the University of Warwick in the UK, but part of this Education and Training Working Group. I will say very, very quickly, so Ecosystem Services Partnership, or much more commonly ESP, I will say, generally referred to as ESP, is this worldwide network of people who are all working on science, policy and practice around, and I'm going to use ecosystem services as a shorthand here. So it was a network very much founded around people who were working on and with ecosystem services as a concept, initiated in 2008 and really established in 2010-11, but really now is much more broadly bringing together people working around allied and related frameworks on conservation and sustainable development. I will put these up, and I know that you'll be able to read these far quicker than I can speak through them, but just to note that ESP Network has a number of structures within it. So as well as being this big network of people who come together around conferences and larger meetings, which I'll speak to you in just a moment, there is a structure of working groups, of which the Education and Training Task Force is one of those. There are regional chapters and national networks. There are various services, membership and partnership activities that ESP undertakes, and this is everything from the creation of working groups around particular thematic, biome or sectoral elements, as I say, regional groups that are very much regionally, nationally focused. Services, there are things that exist that are hosted by ESP, such as the evaluation database. We do also have an education and training repository. I'm very much looking forward to digging into the BioTrails one, which I was not aware of, so that's on my list to be doing in the very near future. But things like networking guidelines as well. And as I say, ESP is a membership organisation which is run by and for members and partnering with a number of other organisations that you can see here as well. There are a number of different activities. I will just bring all of these in so you can see all of them and I can quickly speak to them that ESP is involved in. So being an active stakeholder in IPBES and organising delegations as observers that attend IPBES meetings regularly, as well as individual members being involved in IPBES much more actively. A delegation to COP, a very active early career network called YES, Young Ecosystem Service Specialists, and as we've said, and as I'm part of this task force on education, which really focuses on capacity building activities and webinars. And we do ask for people to get in touch if you're interested in doing that, because we're very happy to support. We have a conference, we have a number of conferences, so there are regional conferences and worldwide conferences. The next big conference is next year. This is the ESP Europe conference, which will be in Prague. I've put the link here, but I can put it in the chat as well. I realise it's not so useful embedded in the slides, but that's in May of next year. And that's really where everything all comes together. So this is where the communities of ESP really come together. As you can see, it's quite a big crowd. If you look very closely in the bottom right-hand picture, I think you can also spot me at one of the previous events. But these have been held since 2008. And yeah, I realise I'm sort of speaking on behalf of ESP, but personally as well, I can vouch for the fact that it has been a really important and dynamic community to be involved in, and I think has brought me into lots of different connections and networks, including the reason I'm speaking to you today. So yeah, here are a couple of details, the website and some socials, if you want to look us up on either of those. But yeah, as I say, I'm happy to hang around and answer any questions in the chat, and I'll drop a few resources there as well. And thank you very much for the time to present.
Fantastic, Carla. Thank you so much for your talk and for your support, the ESP support so far. We will move to the next talk, and we're happy to welcome here with us today Ilkom Soliv, who is head of the Department of Environmental Sociology at Martin Luther University, and Alex Franklin, professor of Social Sustainability Science at Coventry University. Please be reminded that any types of questions the speakers should be typed in the meeting chat, and I will deliver them at the Q&A. So the floor is yours now, Ilkom or Alex. I don't know who is going to speak first.
Alex will go first.
Yeah, I'll start and pass over. So thank you very much. And yeah, it sounds like I need to pop over to Warwick for a cup of coffee sometime soon as well. So the presentation we're giving is for Planet for B. As a reminder, Planet for B ran from 2022 until October this year. So it's finishing a bit earlier than some of the other projects. We've got a lot of outputs therefore coming out in the next couple of months, but we want to feature a couple of these today. Looking at the Pathbreak game series and also our educational platform. Planet for B explores the relationship between plural values, intersectionality, leverage points, attitudes, behaviours, norms, social learning, as an attempt to achieve transformation in biodiversity, prioritisation and decision making. And its main focus, which is reflected in these outputs, is centred around looking at 3 different sets of research-based intervention using creative and arts-based methods, using serious games, and also using choice architecture and sort of other behavioural methods to look at achieving change. And we've focused on doing that in 11 different case studies, but especially 5 in-depth place-based case studies. So going on to what we want to focus on today, in the little time we have available. First of all, the carefulcourses.com. So we'll be launching this towards the beginning of October, and this includes Careful Courses, educational courses which have come out of Planet for B project. It also includes, sorry, it's not screen sharing, there we go, Careful Resources, which I'll come back to in a minute through ILHOME. And then it includes other educational courses, and that's where we'd be really keen if people have got other, I'm sure they have, educational courses that they've developed, which we can add links to so that you can seamlessly navigate from different courses around the different cluster projects. So that's the aim with that. In terms of the actual Planet for B educational courses, these focus, as I mentioned, on the main idea of looking at engagement methods for transformative biodiversity action. So we've developed courses for 4 main target groups: makers, civil society and NGOs, researchers, and also private sector businesses. And we look at developing through the materials that we've got from our learning communities and case studies and all the work we've done around research-based intervention, a key developing sort of guides through educational modules, looking at firstly an introduction to what is biodiversity, moving on to the use of engagement methods, and then looking at working with learning communities in these different policy, third sector and also private settings, and looking at developing and delivering and monitoring and measuring impact. We do this through centering on 15 what we call spotlight methods. So these are key methods featured within Planet for B, which I haven't got time in the presentation to go into detail, but they're really around where we've sort of adapted methods, so things like biodiversity in your cupboard, different methods that you can use, specifically focusing around biodiversity decision making. They're simple. The guides include sort of guidance on how to facilitate them, types of materials, prompts, and more of a sort of idea on the types of resourcing and time and capacity that's needed. And they also feature a number of engaging videos and transformative change clips from our projects. The courses also include specific material adapted to secondary schools and teachers, so from the age of sort of 14 upwards, looking at secondary school, and also just to going to university. So again, these centre around some of the case studies, for example, slowing down fashion being one of the main case studies in Planet for B. Okay, so that's that one. And then I pass over to Ilham now for looking at an example of what we've got in the careful resources.
Thank you, Alex. I'm going to introduce 3 games from the Path Break game series. In Plan for B, we have developed experiential learning games that will help participants to understand the complexities of the unsustainable path we are on and how to break them. The first such game is the Path Break, a biodiversity food governance game. In this game, 7 players and 1 facilitator sit around a table and make decisions about consumption and production. Next slide. We have developed this game with the motivation to create a tool which allows participants to explore not just the direct drivers of biodiversity loss, but also indirect drivers and underlying causes in line with the IPBES Transformative Change Assessment that kind of stressed the importance of addressing deeper social dimensions of biodiversity loss and importance of addressing such drivers as institutions and governance, values and behaviors, and also deeper power dimensions. So with all of that in mind, we have created a game and tried to kind of calibrate it based on behavioral econometric model. In short, we wanted to make the game realistic, not too easy, but also not impossible to win. So the game addresses next slide. The game addresses the direct drivers where land use decisions and consumption decisions are made by the participants, which in turn determine how many points each participant makes for their livelihoods, and also the state of biodiversity. Next slide. The state of biodiversity has an implication for the players through so-called events. Depending on the state of biodiversity, if it's green, yellow, or red, players draw a card with probability events. And they find out whether some events are taking place in this certain round. Next slide. Such as you can see here, pest infestation or food shortage, and they lose points. As this is a probability event, there is also a chance that players are lucky and there is no event happening in that round. In addition, the next slide, the game is designed in a way that helps players to learn about addressing indirect drivers of biodiversity loss. Throughout the game, in each round, players make a number of decisions in relation to governance, which includes whether players decide to communicate in the community council and to what extent they would like to be active. This also includes their decisions in referendums or elections, whether they would like to run for the office of the governor and who they maybe support in elections. And then the governance decision to change or keep the policies. In this case, we selected 1 tax and investment policy and 1 rewilding and land availability policy. And on this slide, you see how we included intersectionality dimensions. This primarily in 2 ways. First, one of the players has a migration background who does not have citizenship, which means this person is not eligible to run for the office, nor to vote in the referendum or elections. Second, we have also included a short profile information for each player that includes their livelihood status and their views towards agriculture, environment, and also broader societal freedoms and responsibilities. It's still up to players to what extent they would like to use this information. So based on the pilots we have run with experts, with learning community from the case study, and with the external audiences, we have identified a number of lessons. We analyzed the debriefing sessions and looked at what players talked about after the game. And they talked about direct social dilemma with cognitive focus, trying to calculate what decisions they have to make so that they can win, so to speak, as an individual or as a group, while being conscious of biodiversity. They also talked about social dilemma with affective relational focus, reflecting on whether they identified with the group, whether they trusted others, etc. They also talked about indirect governance and political dilemmas, which included power of the market, collective action, role of communication, democracy and election, intersectionality, and other political aspects. And finally, they also talked about biodiversity-related lessons, like complexity of the challenge, frustration about the challenge, and also the hope to overcome this challenge. We have also looked at their comments in terms of how often they connected their experience to real-life situations. And we found that all of the participants very heavily connected what happened in the game with the real-life situations, which is a good sign for us, as we know this is the time when experience from the game actively transforms into actionable knowledge. Then the second game we developed is a pass break negotiation game. Here we wanted to develop a classroom role-playing game where players discuss a very specific dam project in a tropical rainforest. It's an immersive strategy game with a fictional yet realistic scenario and simulated political decision-making. Using confidential and public instructions, here players must defend the interests of their roles, negotiate through unexpected events such as corruption scandals, leakage of confidential information, demonstrations, and similar, participate in informal rounds of negotiations behind the doors, and also learn how media can shape the discourse. So most people have tried something like this in their school or university times. Now we have a game that's particularly dedicated to societal dimensions of addressing biodiversity loss. Finally, we wanted to develop games with different levels of complexity and suitable for different contexts. So in collaboration with Jenga, we developed the Pass Break Biodiversity Jenga game. It allows you to print out a board and instructions that go with the famous Jenga game. Players can roll dice, move their pieces to a new location, which then explains a specific task that matches specific colors on Jenga. So for example, a wind farm means you have to remove one of the birds. This is now designed to be a fun icebreaker, more to start a conversation about biodiversity and ecosystems. Now for introducing also the catalog of methods, I will pass it back to you, Alex.
Thanks. Just to wrap up, so we've brought these together. There's a digital searchable catalogue on the Careful resources, and then there's also a downloadable PDF, which will be coming out in October, which gives you a short summary of the different sets of each of the methods that we're featuring, and also a QR code so that you can go to the courses if you want to learn about it in more detail as a course, or if you just want to access it as a method, you can do that through the resources section. And it includes also, which we have no time for, but a reflexivity situatedness matrix, which we can put a link in the chat for a related publication. And that's really helping people understand, you know, the reality that we're not going to achieve transformation with a single method. So how do you mix different methods together in accordance with the audience, the setting, the purpose, the resources, whether you want, you know, conscious change or deep reflexivity, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's about more than probably we had time to share. So that's it from us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, both. Very interesting set of tools that you have developed here. I see Jason is writing in the chat that he loves the gamification ideas. They do convey some very strong, they are very strong communicative tools. So yes, just one quick question from me while waiting if there is another question in the chat. So I know you had your final event last few weeks ago, so but you're still you're finishing in October, right? So there must be a lot of ongoing work on finalizing these tools, and I was wondering whether you have validated, for example, the educational material already, or the games. Ilkom mentioned some pilots. I don't know how many people the pilots involved, and yeah, about the games, I would about the educational material, I would also like to ask Alex. Yeah.
Alex, you want to go first?
Okay, educational materials, we've started off with feedback through the different target groups as to what would be useful for them. So we did surveying at the beginning, had focus groups and brought information together. We're still building the final material, so we now need to take it back out to the groups, which is what we'll be doing in October. The educational courses, they have been tested and validated through one of our partners, Climate Academy, who's been leading on that work. So they've been working with a series of different teachers and schools, testing things out around there. Yeah, so that's on that side. But what we'd really welcome is, as soon as we've got it launched, there's a lot of specialists in education here in this group, so it'd be really super to have any more feedback and comments from people during October. So if it's okay, we'll send a link around once it's ready for some beta testing then. Ilham, on the games?
Yeah, on the games, we usually follow lots of rounds of pre-testing. So trying to identify certain elements of the game that are working or not. That can happen in-house, but then we also have piloting with partners and also audiences beyond our project. So we tested with different kinds of audiences. We continue always kind of try and find some smaller elements here and there and try to improve it. So we are designing it in a way that allows us to continuously adapt it. And the first game that I introduced is available already on the website, passbreak.eu, as I put in the chat. And the other two are, like you said, are in the process of being uploaded and made available.
Okay, great. Just a small comment. I really liked it in the Path Break series. It was interesting to see the input that you got from the pilots. That is also quite interesting information, and it kind of reminded me also of BIOTRAILS conceptual framework that works mostly on the theory of plant behavior. So I think that even the data from the pilots can be useful to exchange between projects. It's an idea. I think that I would really like to see you in our closing event special session, because I think we have lots of things to exchange. So going to the chat, there is a question from Evgenia Degano, who asks if they are not yet available. She could not find the catalog for methods.
Yeah, I've just replied in the chat.
Okay. So, all right. Okay. Nice. All right. So yeah, I think we should move on with our next speaker for today. Let me see, who is this? This is Sotiris Kotaridis, Project Manager in Circular Economy at Draxis Environmental. So Sotiris will present a tool of sustainable reporting for sustainable reporting that BioTrails has developed for companies. Sotiris, the floor is yours.
Yes. Thank you, Natasha. Let me share my screen first of all. Okay, I guess you can see my screen. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so hi everyone. As Natasha introduced me, I'm Sotiris Kotaridis from Draxis Environmental, and I'm going to present to you the ESG Biodiversity Focus Toolkit, which was developed by Draxis in the scope of the BioTrails project. Now the idea is that I will try to have a very brief presentation, a couple of minutes or so, with this PowerPoint, in order to jump into an actual demonstration of the tool itself, which I think should be more insightful than a couple of slides. So very quickly, first of all, what is the ESG Biodiversity Focus Toolkit, or we should refer to this as BioTrails ESG Toolkit for short. The ESG Biodiversity Toolkit is an open access online tool which is designed to help companies integrate biodiversity impact into their ESG sustainability reporting through standardized sector-specific approaches. The toolkit is specifically focusing on 3 value chains, considering industries that deal with cocoa, aquaculture, and gold, which were the case studies of the project. And the goal of this tool is to help companies assess their performance in terms of biodiversity, as well as provide guidance for mitigating biodiversity impacts, and generally support the integration of biodiversity criteria into ESG policies. So why this toolkit? With the EU Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive now in effect, companies are expected to disclose their biodiversity-related impact across their value chains. And in this regard, the Biodiversity Toolkit offers a practical and standardized approach for aligning sustainability strategies with EU regulatory requirements. The tool developed by Draxis in collaboration with the Federal Institute of Technology of Zurich in the framework of BIOTRAILS, and is tailored to meet the evolving needs of companies striving for transparency, accountability, and biodiversity positive action. This means that the tool basically enables companies to identify, assess, mitigate, and report their biodiversity impacts in line with the latest EU regulatory requirements. So what makes the specific toolkit valuable? Well, compared to other tools, one may find online, the biodiversity toolkit developed for BIOTRAILS is actually built on widely recognized European standards. For example, the tool is built on the European Sustainability Reporting Standards, or ESRS for short, and is also aligned with the sector-specific indicators issued by the Task Force of Nature-Related Financial Disclosures, or TNFD. The tool covers critical impact drivers like climate change, land use change, pollution, resource exploitation, and biodiversity loss. And generally, the tool is designed to go beyond guidance as it performs calculations and provides quantitative impact assessment, reducing the reporting burden of companies. That basically means that the company should be able to use this tool to have a quick but pretty accurate assessment of its biodiversity impact, which they can use when generating their biodiversity reports, which should significantly reduce the time and hassle providing these reports. A couple of things about the background methodology of the toolkit. Considering the structure, the tool is based on the 5 steps of the SBTN framework. It also examines drivers of change according to the IPBES framework. These drivers of change are then, let's say, translated into sector-specific metrics, which the tool calculates. These metrics are aligned with the TNFD framework, and the quantification of these metrics is done with relevant open access datasets, such as Embryo, Acrobalise, ELCD, etc. Here we can see the 5-step methodology of the SBTN framework. We have step 1, which is to assess, meaning to conduct materiality assessment and map the value chain. We have step 2, which is to interpret and prioritize, meaning identify spheres of influence and prioritize places. Step 3 is measure, set, and disclose, where we measure baselines, develop monitoring plans, set targets, disclose baselines and targets. The next step is to act, meaning to avoid impact, reduce impact, restore and regenerate, and also transform. And finally, we have step 5, which is to track, meaning to monitor our impact, to report and verify one's impact. Here we can see screenshots from the toolkit itself, where, as you can see, the framework is integrated pretty much verbatim from the framework inside the tool. And as I said, the drivers of change examined are drawn by the IPBES. Then drivers of change, basically, you can think of them as aspects that drive biodiversity impact. This would be land and sea use change, climate change, pollution, etc. Considering the sector-specific metrics, as I previously mentioned, these were drawn by the TNFD framework, and they were quantified inside the tool. Some of they were quantified in form of indicators. Some indicators were global indicators, meaning that it could be applied to any sector really. Some were more sectorial, let's say, meaning that they were mostly focused on the specific sectors. Here we can see an example of the pathway, let's say, from the driver to the indicator. We have an example for one of the 3 value chains, the aquaculture. We have the drivers of change, which you can basically think of as the larger categories of impacts, if you will, which can then be translated into more specific indicators, which are calculated inside the ESG toolkit. And that is all for some introductions. I guess we have some time now to have an actual demonstration of the tool. There is quite enough content inside the tool, so if I get a bit carried away, please feel free to stop me. I will try to cover as much as possible, but I think that the demo is actually more interesting. So let's think of this demo as an exercise. Say that we can begin with a cocoa dealing company. Say that we're a company dealing with cocoa products, such as a cocoa liquor production, for example, and we want to use this toolkit. There are various ways to use the toolkit. You can use it to monitor impact of previous years. or you can use it in a forecasting sort of way to strategize for potentially the next year to come. So for this particular, let's say, exercise, I consider, let's say, I'm a cocoa company. I use the toolkit to assess my impact in 2024 for an annual consumption of about 10 tons of cocoa beans. In 2025, I had a slight increase in my consumption, 12 tons of cocoa beans. And now I would like to use the tool, say, to strategize and have some projections about 2026. So what I would do is I would create a new value chain, which I would call Cocoa 2026. I have to check what type of value chain I'm examining and the reference year, and then I can go to step 1. I give it a couple of seconds to load. Okay, so step 1 is just providing some preliminary information for my assessment. Now, I considered in previous years that they have a Greek factory. There we go. Located in Greece, obviously. I considered that I had this one factory where we had all the consumption of 2025, which would be 12 tons. And let's say if the factory area was about 1 square kilometer. Let's just say that in 2026, I am considering business is going well, and I'm considering opening up a new factory, let's say in our neighbors in Cyprus. Smaller one, let's say a 3-ton consuming one, with a spatial footprint of 0.5 square kilometers. So I inputted everything that is required for step 1, then I can go to step 2. And in step 2, what we have is basically a high-level impact assessment. What does this mean? Well, the simplest way to put this would be this. If my 2 factories, the Greek one and the one in Cyprus, operated at the, let's say, the most average way possible, if you will, average electricity consumptions, average efficiency of the overall process, average waste generation and management, even buying cocoa beans in a way that represents the average mix of producers from the various countries of the world, my impact should look something like this. Now, as I said, the tool examines quite a few drivers of change. As you can see here, climate change, land use change. We have some insights, but since time is pressing, I would say we can just focus on one of the hot topics of today, which is the climate change and the global warming and the greenhouse gas emissions. So here we can see an average total of the greenhouse gas emissions for the specific consumption. We have a breakdown for the different stages, the cultivation of cocoa beans, the transportation of the beans to the factories, and the processing of the beans to have the final product, maybe cocoa liquor, for example. Here we have some visuals of some maps, considering, for example, this map has a breakdown of the emissions depending on the country of origin for the cocoa beans. In this average scenario, we considered the larger players in the cocoa production. We have obviously Brazil, we have Peru, Ivory Coast, and other countries. And I guess we can move on to the next step, which is step 3, which basically after we have a very quick high-level assessment to see what happens in average in the market, let's say, I can go ahead and provide some more specifics for my own value chain. For the cultivation, we're beginning with the country of origin. In my previous scenarios, I considered that I buy all of my cocoa beans from Peru, which is consequently the use case of BIOTRAILS. And here, for the cultivation practices, I consider that I'm buying from the average mix of the country. So I can just, the tool in all the questions allows me to just click on using average data, which helped me, either not waste time, or if I don't have specifics about my activities, I can just input the average data. For the transportation, once again, let's say that I do this pretty much averagely. And for the processing, I can once again say that my activities are pretty much average. Average electricity consumption, average use of packaging materials, solid waste management, etc. And after I have inputted everything, on occasion, a reload of the tool may be needed in case every time you input your information, the field should be green. If it doesn't, maybe a reload should be fine. It should help it work fine, as it did now. And after I include everything, I can go and check my impact results. I can see, for example, my total greenhouse gas emissions. A very useful insight is that the tool also provides me here an average, basically the number that we saw in step 2, and this helps me identify that there may be some issues. Here we can see that we are significantly higher than average. Why would this be? We can consult the breakdown to have a better insight. Seems that the cultivation is higher than the average. This is probably because maybe Peru favors more traditional and less efficient cultivation pathways. Transportation emissions are also higher. This is no surprise, since we are moving all the cocoa beans from Peru to Europe. Peru is quite quite further than countries in Africa, for example, such as Ivory Coast. So this is no surprise. And after we see our impact, we can go to step 4, which is to act. In step 4, what we have is basically this. The tool provides us some insights, some graphs, some impact factors, which can help me identify some hotspots that I could address and sort of interpret why my impact looks like the way it does. For the sake of this exercise, let us say that I don't want to change everything. I just want to go to step 5, which is to monitor and see how I stand in respect to previous years. And no surprise here, I'm quite worse due to the higher consumption. And as I see my figures, I'm thinking, okay, maybe I should try to act somehow. So what I can do is go back to step 4. And now maybe I should consult what the tool provides me for information. Let's click here the info button. We can see some insights about the different production methods, for example. I can see that traditional cultivation methods have lower yields of cocoa production. So this would probably mean that the impact is bigger in terms of, per kilogram of cocoa bean. So maybe there are some insights here. We also have some quantitative insights here. Yeah, as you can see, traditional low input cultivation methods are quite more emissive in respect to other pathways of cultivation. We can see for the processing of the cocoa beans, electricity consumption is another big thing, as well as use of packaging materials. And after I grab all my insights, I can then see, okay, what if I try an alternative scenario? So I can click on here, and I can sort of check out what may go wrong. I can see that Peru, the production mix in Peru is like 85% traditional low input. So I can now understand why my impact was higher than average. So maybe I should try to do something drastic about this. So let's say, why don't I try and buy significantly higher amounts cultivated with more efficient high-tech approaches which give us higher yields. That should make a significant difference. In transportation, I'd say I would keep it as it is. Not much I can do there. For the processing, electricity, let's say electricity and heat from natural gas, let's say I cannot do much here. Maybe I can reduce my plastic use, however. Maybe I can have some more responsible packaging techniques or whatnot. Maybe I can even increase my internal recycling inside the factory premises. And let's check what the impact looks like now. And yeah, as we can see, the impact is actually quite lower, like 80,000 or so, lower than the average, which was significantly lower prior. And then if I go back to step 5, which is to monitor, I will reload the page, give it a couple of seconds. And yeah, as you can see, despite the fact that I have a higher consumption of cocoa beans, 15 compared to 12 in 2025, my impact was actually lower because using the insights of the tool, I assessed that I should try to go for more efficient cultivation methods that gives us higher yields and thus a lower impact per kilogram of cocoa beans, for example. So this is basically it for the one value chain, let's say. After I have concluded with my assessment and I have seen the figures and I like the figures, or maybe I don't, but there's nothing else I can do. I can go and complete my value chain. Then the tool will also provide the QR for a survey to assess the user, to help to allow for the user to give his feedback on what he thinks about the tool. And then it brings us back to the main page where we can do the same process for another value chain. It could be cocoa, it could be aquaculture, and gold, which were the 3 use cases. The idea was to have some demo for the other 2 value chains as well, but I guess time is a bit prohibitive on that. So yeah, but the functionalities of the other 2 value chains are pretty much the same. The structure is the same. The inputs, of course, are different. The results as well in terms of different impact categories, but the general idea is this. So I guess that would be all from my side.
Thank you, Sotiris. I'm afraid we have exceeded a bit the time. I know it is more important to show the tool. So there are 2 questions from Christian Gebhardt at the chat. I suggest that you briefly maybe reply to one of the 2 and then reply in the chat for the rest. So she asks if there is a crop-based comparison possible, for instance, cocoa versus quinoa, and if there is a GHG versus biodiversity indicators available.
Yeah, for the first question, there is no comparison actually. These tools were specifically designed for the use case of the project. One of the use cases was cocoa production. Quinoa is a completely different value chain with different end products. It's not really relevant to a cocoa producing company, I would think. Obviously, these tools can be extended to include whatever value chain may require it. Even the use case of the project itself, as you could see, there were cocoa, aquaculture, and gold pretty distinct, pretty non-relatable. So basically, it could be extended to anything. But as of now, no. Every subset of the tool, the 3 subsets, let's say, are specific for the specific use case. That is for one. And what was the second question?
I suggest that you reply in the chat because we have limited time. We have to pass on with the next speaker.
Okay. We should reply to
maybe you can also copy in the chat the link to the tool so that people can test. I think you're welcome.
Mm-hmm.
You're welcoming testing of your tool and input on this, right? So let's move with to another tool, or rather a framework for companies. We stay at the sustainability reporting forefront, and I welcome Anne-Catherine Vogel from the CircHive project. She's project manager at the Lake Constance Foundation. So Anne-Catherine, the floor is yours.
Oh. Hello, everybody. So, hello, I'm Anne-Catherine Vogel from the Lake Constance Foundation and happy to present you the ideal framework for biodiversity for food and tech, for the food and textile sector, which we developed during the last year in this project, CircHive project. And it's, in comparison to the earlier talks, a less fancy web-based tool, but it's a tool for companies to work with to improve their biodiversity criteria. So I will just set my time. Yeah, so just a quick information on the CircHive project. If you haven't heard of it yet, it supports businesses and the public sector on their reporting, so to recognize and measure their impact on biodiversity. It's a lot about biodiversity footprinting, different ways on measuring it. And it's like all the Horizon project, a very wide consortium of project partners. And we are just in the middle of the project. Yeah, and we have different work packages. On one side, we analyze different methods. Then we are working on sustainable business models and also giving policy recommendations later on in the project. And one big thing is the mainstreaming of biodiversity footprinting. And in this part, there's also the work on improving instruments or developing even instruments that support the different sectors to improve their biodiversity performance. Yeah. So we were working on new ISO standard or norm, and now with the idea framework that I will present now, this is a work for supporting certification and standards that are used on a voluntary basis. So what is the idea framework? In the end, it's a for the moment an Excel file with several tabs, and it has a wide content on criteria. It's a big catalog of criteria for good biodiversity management, and there I will present you the different chapters that we are working on. So it should provide an orientation for either the standards who are now very much involved in integrating biodiversity, which wasn't the case 5 years ago, but now more and more standards involve it. And also the companies, if they have own company regulations, they are now partly forced, or if they're not forced, but interested to go deeper into this subject. So
excuse me, Anita.
Yes.
Are you sharing your slides?
Yes.
No, we are not seeing the slides.
Oh.
Sorry to.
Yeah, it works now.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah, it was not so. Yeah, it's okay.
Great.
Yes. So here you have the link where you can download the framework, and now some words how we developed it. So you have this wide range of criteria, and we get some out of the standards that are already very good in biodiversity issues. So we screened more than 20 standards by now, and categorized the criteria that they used in very good or in efficient. So we took those, and for some areas, subjects where there were not any criteria or no good criteria, we developed new criteria and summarized them and put them together. And then we gave feedback to the standards already so that they know where to improve. With those we were working at, you see some of them here, the labels of them. And then we did a row of different workshops to get their feedback on the framework that we were working on. And it's in the end a living document. And in the second part of the project, we will revise it and adapt to new biodiversity issues, or see if they are all have improved yet. We can go even wider on this. So just as couple of findings that we found through the screening of the standards that exist already. They were quite good in starting to have a look at the biodiversity management in comparison to the biodiversity monitoring that was not really involved yet. There's few exemptions on it, but there were no big concepts yet. In the protected species area, there were some standards that involved it, but it's more at the moment you see on the next slide that they focus on the agricultural practices. So the way of minimizing the biodiversity impact and not yet to get new habitats or new supporting like the pushing biodiversity in a positive way. Same with alien invasive species. There hasn't been really any good criteria involved in their checklists yet. It's different in the more classical agricultural criteria areas. So you have soil and fertilizer management. This is covered in all standards, and pesticides management as well is included, but of course it's not always a clear line for the efficiency or difficult to evaluate how effective it is. And you have covered in the water criteria and not yet so much in the waste criteria. So you will find criteria in these areas all involved in the ideal framework. We have 3 different parts of the framework, and I will just open it once to show you the Excel file. And yeah, there's an introduction on it, some text, and then you have recommendations for the policies of the standards. That is mainly you can go through it and see if you have all definitions of biodiversity, if the focus that you set already includes biodiversity, if you have mentioned the mitigation hierarchy, so that you always would avoid to your impact on biodiversity as far as possible, and so on. So it's a very clear, or if a company sits down and wants to improve it, they can go through it and pick what they want through it to get ideas how to improve. And also we use it if we consult a case study partner within the project to see what they have and to improve it. The second part is based on the drivers of biodiversity loss. So there's a whole tab on ecosystems, on resources, on contamination, on species, and on cross-cutting, so on trainings, and they are formulated already as they can be used in a standard. Yeah. And another addition is what we included, which is good for the standards and companies to know, that we already are included also the synergies of the criteria. So if a company already thought much more about climate change or other issues, and then they want to know if the biodiversity criteria has an effect on the other areas as well, they have a cross here to see, there's a positive synergy for another environmental impact also. And you have a glossary in the framework, etc. Yeah, so here in the presentation there, you may see what we included. It's on pesticides, on GMOs, agrobiodiversity, and generally we always highlight the continuous improvement. Of course, not all standards will be the ideal framework in the end, but we hope that we can push all the standards into a good direction to improve. Yeah, and here there's the summary of the different tabs that I looked at. If we choose ecosystems, then we have, it's all about protected areas and biodiversity management in general, etc. So CircHive is working on the biodiversity footprinting and wants to include it. In this area, we have two connections between the standards and the biodiversity footprinting, either if the standard should involve biodiversity footprints within their criteria, which wasn't the case up to now, probably also for bureaucratic reasons. And because there's not yet one method or one harmonized systems where they can compare the one footprint that exists. So probably this will not be the one that we are focusing on, but for the companies, it could be a good service for standards organizations to summarize the data that the standard has and to calculate a footprint for a company. So that there will be discussions on that to see how this may function, because standard organizations do have a lot of data, and there are also simple methods of biodiversity footprinting which they can start with the data they have, or with just little adaptation of their checklists. Yeah, so that will be the work that we continue to do. We will shortly have a whole publication on the textile sector in English, where the Excel table is included, but there's also a text for the textile sector. And yeah, we have the further discussions on including the biodiversity footprint within the standard world. And in general, we are working on the decision tree for companies to find their right method with their goals, what they want to achieve with the biodiversity footprinting within their system. And we will get the links to these decision tree also. That is now in high working mode in this fall and will be finished by the end of the year. Yeah, so we will be happy to present you that decision tree for companies as well. Yeah. So that's it from my side. Thank you for your attention. And if you have any questions, I couldn't see you or the chat now. Please let me know.
So thank you very much, Anne-Catherine, for this interesting part of your work. It's really valuable, what you have been doing in terms of also of policy recommendations for the gaps that exist in terms of certification in the different sectors. There is Erika Adobe Alarbi that wants to ask a question, but since we don't have the time, I would suggest that she puts the question in the chat or at the Q&A. So there is a Q&A also where you can ask your question, and Anne-Catherine can reply to this. We need to move with our next speaker because we are a bit late, actually. So thank you again. And I will now invite Frini Lazaru, who is Research and Development Project Manager at EBOS, who will present BIOTRAILS, the BIOTRAILS developed visualization tool. I will let her explain everything about it. Frini?
Yeah, can you hear me now, hopefully?
Yes.
Yes.
And I hope you can see the presenter's mode. Lanai, please stop me if there's something wrong with the screen sharing. You know I'm not the best at it.
We see the notes, Frini. We see the notes, yes.
Ah, okay. Sorry. I have an issue with my this morning. So let me just see what I can do. It's not working for some reason, but let's try again. No, I think it's sharing the wrong screen again. You're not seeing the presenter's mode.
Oh, we
No?
still see the note.
That's not working. Let's try something else.
Yes, great now.
Finally. So, first of all, good morning also from my side. Many thanks for the invitation from my colleagues in White Research and Harrogate University. I'm Frini, and today I have the pleasure to walk you for the first time through our visualization tool, which is basically a dashboard we are currently developing to explore how different interventions can shape biodiversity, climate, and society. I should mention that this is part, of course, of the wider mission we have within BioTrails to drive transformative change across different global value chains. Sorry, something is wrong again with my screen. Yeah, guess it's working now. Yeah.
Yes.
So I will follow a similar approach to the one applied by my colleague Sotiris from Draxis. So just a few very quick notes about the tool itself, and hopefully we will take a couple of minutes to have a live demo. I understand we've had a bit behind time, so I will just keep it short and try to focus on maybe one example so we can make it happen. So first, what is the BioTrails visualization tool? So at its core, it's basically an online dashboard, which is designed to turn complex scientific outputs into user-friendly interactive visuals. This is basically what it is. So it draws on the project's different models and data sets we have produced, presenting them either as maps, charts, or other visual dashboards, so the evidence can be somehow explored intuitively. Of course, the tool covers our 4 case studies. We have already mentioned these in previous presentations, but just to quickly mention, we have the 4 case studies are gold in Ghana, cocoa in Peru, aquaculture and fisheries in Greece, and of course, handicrafts in Brazil. It should be noted that this is not just a display tool. Our aim is to design it in a way that it will support stakeholders, different types of stakeholders, policymakers, and different value chain actors to identify pathways for transformative change. And while it is still a tool that is under development, it evolves further as we integrate new features and feedback from our case study leaders, our partners, and the different types of stakeholders. Now, why this visualization tool? Of course, we know from both scientific literature and feedback gathered from our stakeholders that the links between biodiversity, climate change, and global trade are not only complex, but sometimes often invisible. So what makes our tool valuable is that it helps to somehow uncover those hidden links. So it tries to translate data into maps, graphs, and scenarios that stakeholders can somehow interact with. In that way, it seeks to bridge this gap between research and decision-making, but at the same time, supporting dialogue, raising awareness, and ultimately helping us identify leverage points for transformative change. So I guess you are already see where this is going. The goal of our tool, of the visualization tool, is twofold. So first, it allows us to visualize how different types of interventions, whether policy-driven, market-based, or community-led, can influence the nexus, the biodiversity, climate, and society outcomes. And secondly, it enables stakeholders to explore different scenarios and reflect on alternative pathways for their value chains. In doing so, as I have already mentioned, the tool doesn't just display data, it seeks to become a kind of a capacity building instrument and provide a common ground for dialogue, helping diverse groups of stakeholders co-create solutions and identify leverage points for transformative change, as I have already mentioned. So we have already referred to the case studies. I'm just going to say quickly that each of the case studies highlight a different dimension of this nexus, of the biodiversity, climate, and society nexus. For example, in Ghana, the case study dedicated to gold mining, particularly on artisanal and small scale, it provides insights into how production activities contribute to global biodiversity footprints. In Peru, cocoa trade demonstrates how consumption patterns and international value chains can shift biodiversity pressures abroad. In Greece, in aquaculture and fisheries case studies, where we can see that they face increasing pressures from climate change, which is visible through sea surface temperature and salinity projections, as you will see later in the tool. I will quickly show you this part of the tool. And in Brazil, the handicraft production, which depends on natural materials that are highly sensitive to climate stressors, such as drought, heavy rainfall, and heat extremes. So taken together, all these case studies show the diversity of contexts in which transformative change is urgently needed. And quickly, some key features of the dashboard. Unfortunately, we don't have the time to go through the tool and explore all the different functionalities, but maybe it would be nice to quickly refer to a couple of the features that we are implementing in the dashboard at the moment. So, of course, aiming to make complex science, as I already mentioned at the beginning, accessible and usable. So first, it is interactive and case study based. Users can navigate through the 4 different value chains and explore data that matters to them and are interested to those. Secondly, it visualizes information through maps, charts, and time series covering multiple skills. This includes climate projections, as you will see, under different scenarios, trade-related biodiversity footprints, and indicators of environmental change. It also tries to make resources accessible, so users can download different data sets provided by the BIOTRAILS partners and use them to make their own analysis and decision making. It also supports comparison across alternative scenarios, whether climate scenarios, consumption patterns, or biodiversity impacts, helping stakeholders understand possible futures and trade-offs. And it also integrates an intervention scenario component, which is developed by CNR, the project coordinator of BIOTRAILS. Basically, this Nexus Policy Simulator is currently being tested in Ghana, and it allows us to somehow experiment with different policy options and see how they affect communities, ecosystems, and resources. So these are some of the features that are of the BIOTRAILS visualization tool, which are, of course, designed to show data, display data, and encourage further interaction, discussion, and co-design of pathways. And then perhaps we can quickly go to the demo. I just need to share the screen again, I guess, so you can see the right one. I hope you can all see the home page now.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's a web-based tool. Thank you, Danaimu. And as I have already mentioned, some things are still under development, and we are going through a third round of improvements at the moment. But maybe we can just take a couple of minutes just to quickly show you around. So this is our homepage. So once you enter the tool, you can have a short intro about what exactly is this tool and a little something about the nexus that the project examines. Here you can see a placeholder. Actually, we are currently designing a nice figure for this part of the tool, but the idea is that we will have a nice figure displaying the Biodiversity Society nexus. So here you can see the 4 case studies, and you have, of course, links because the idea is to have is to connect all the things in one place. So once you enter our tool, you can also redirect to our platform, to our learning platform, our website, and other tools that we have produced in the project, the serious game and the toolkit by Draxis. So our tool is open and it doesn't require any registration. So it gives you quick access to different tools developed within BioTrails. And I think that's quite a cool thing to do. So as I have already mentioned, it's a case study based tool. Okay, so you have the 4 different case studies, and within each case study, you have different roles of the value chain. So we can quickly, if we click explore, once we enter the tool, we can see the 4 case studies. And here we have a little something about each case study. So it gives us a nice overview of what this case study is about. Of course, these are things that have been designed and created together with our case study leaders, because they are also involved in the design and the development of our tool. So should also give the credit for them, and many thanks for supporting this action. So let's just take Cocoa, because I know we don't have the time. So you enter the case study, and then you have the possibility to select one of the roles in this case study. We can just quickly go to the producers. So the idea here is to give a little overview of how this tool can be useful for this specific group of stakeholders. So it's just an introduction, and basically it tells you that how you can use this tool and how this can be useful, for example, specifically for the producers. And once I proceed to explore the data, here I have, for the moment, 4 tabs, which is what I mentioned at the beginning, our effort to display data in an accessible way. So if I just take the Climate Scenarios Explorer, here you have 3 different scenarios, and then if you select a data set, you can play with the variables in different scenarios. So I can have different scenarios or the same and explore different things. I can change, for example, let's take the heat stress days, and I can change, and I can somehow use the slider to compare what happens through the different scenarios. So it takes a little time to make the different comparisons. So to see how things changes, what the scale means, and so on. We also have the climate trends, which is again linked to Draxis' work on the climatic projections. And here the idea is the same, that you select the variable which represents different averages, minimums, maximums, and trends over time. And you can use the drop downs and again compare different scenarios. Also, it's quite another cool thing is the consumption and biodiversity impacts, which uses data from our partner ETH in Switzerland. So here, for example, you can see the biodiversity impacts of global consumption of cocoa beans between different years. And of course, you can also play with animations and see how this changes over time. So you can compare how trade and consumption patterns drive biodiversity pressure at a more global scale, let's say. And of course, you can select the year, you can select specific parts in the map, and so on. And then what we are currently developing at the moment is a resource tab for each and every case study. This is where the different stakeholders can, if they want to, download the different data sets that we have in the project. And this is, of course, under development. We will have more in the future, but the idea is to give the option to all the case study stakeholders to have access to the data. This is more or less the tool. I think Danai, that's all. I don't want to go to the rest of the case studies because I think it will take us forever. But that's the general idea. It's as I mentioned, it's under development, and the aim is to have this ready before the end of October. Yeah, happy to take any questions from the audience or through the chat. I will be more than happy to answer those. But thank you for giving us the chance to share it with the world, because it's the first time actually we are presenting what we have been doing, and I know it's still under progress, but thank you for giving us the chance.
Thank you so much, Frini. You are also late, and people are worried that we're not going to have time for all the talks, so I will directly pass to Paul. There is lots of things that happen in the chat. There are links to very interesting DNA technologies for gold tracing, for a new for an online conference on nature-friendly consumption. So please have a look at the chat, and very interesting presentation indeed. So now we're going, says Jason to Frini about the tool, and now we're going to pass to Paul. So Paul is representing OPLA, who is a partner of the BIONEXT EU project and the EU Nature-Based Solutions Knowledge Repository. So welcome, Paul, and the floor is yours.
Thanks, everyone. Can you see my screen okay? You should be seeing it on full view. Yeah, great. Yeah, I'll be quick. I appreciate we're running behind, but I'll try and get through this quickly. Nice to hear all the other presentations, actually. There's some really interesting work going on across these projects. I'm here today representing BIONEXT, but it's also good to see colleagues from CircHive because we're in that project too. So hi to the CircHive people who are here as well. Yeah, so I'm going to be talking a little bit about AI, and I'm pretty sure we're all familiar with AI, or at least we know what the words mean. And I'm going to give you a very quick tour of how we're using AI in the BIONEXT project. AI is obviously a big topic, and it's increasingly becoming an important topic in the sector that we're working in research and innovation, and it's also an important topic outside of work in our private lives. You almost can't escape AI at the moment, and in terms of the way AI is developing, we're kind of about here at the moment. So you can ignore the rest of that slide apart from the blue line, and you'll see that the trajectory that we're on with AI and the speed at which it's developing and the impacts that it's going to have are going to accelerate over the coming years. So it's not a linear curve that we're on with AI, it's very much an exponential curve, and you see that around us in the world all the time. AI can be very polarizing, and this is something that we've really considered going into this as BIONEXT. We sometimes use AI perhaps naively in our sector, and there are very positive strengths in using AI, and there are also concerns and kind of problems that we need to avoid. So AI is a very ethically difficult topic as well, and we've tried to wrestle with some of these ideas as we've been working on BIONEXT. I'm not going to go into that in detail today, but just to say that AI is perhaps different to other types of softwares and other technologies that we use, in that it has quite polarizing views. There are environmental impacts with AI as well, and as an environmental project looking to seek transformative change for biodiversity, that's something we've been very conscious of. AI uses huge amounts of water, it uses huge amounts of energy, and what can we do about that? Should we be using AI, and how should we be using it? And these are questions that we've been asking ourselves, but also mindful that AI has tremendous benefits to us working in research, and it has lots of benefits potentially to society. Again, it's complicated, but we're looking to try and maximize those values. And it is an industrial revolution, and it might not feel like it, but it certainly is happening around us. And like the last industrial revolution, it's going to bring about huge changes to how we work, and it's also probably going to be quite polluting. And we need to tackle both of those sort of questions. So the technologies we're using are changing rapidly. You'll notice that in your own work. You know, the technologies and where they look now compared to where they'll be in 3 years' time will be hugely different. And our jobs are changing. These are blacksmiths. I don't know if you're familiar with blacksmiths, but they used to make shoes for horses. And here are some blacksmiths before the Industrial Revolution thinking their jobs would be safe. And within 5 years, they were all working in factories because we didn't need horses. So we have to be mindful that the world we're working in is changing, and we need to keep up with this as a sector. Not to scare you all here, but it's just things that we have to keep in mind. So how have we approached this at BIONEXT? Well, we want to maximize the usefulness and the positive benefits of AI. We think AI has tremendous opportunities for science and research, but we also want to minimize the ethical risks and the environmental impacts of how we use AI. And so those are the two goals that we're looking to sort of push towards. And in considering this, we're very aware that research projects tend to be PDF factories. When you look at the end of a research project, you have a big stack of PDFs. What do we really do with that? Who really reads all that information? You know, does anyone sit down and read 50 PDFs to digest the outputs of our projects? Probably not. So what can we do to make that information more accessible? So aware that projects create large volumes of text, we've thought about how can we make the outputs of BIONEXT more accessible, not just to specialists, but how can we make our outputs accessible to people that are interested in our topics, but might be coming from different sectors or might be members of the public? How can we make that big stack of PDFs accessible to those people? Because they're not going to sit down and read them all. And how can we use AI to have a conversation with the project? How can I interact with that information in a way that allows me to ask questions of it and tailor that information to me and my needs and interests? So when we think about artificial intelligence, we tend to think about large language models, which I'll explain in a moment. So things like ChatGPT. But artificial intelligence is a big space. There are lots of different types of AI. And AI isn't always so new. Some of these AIs have been around since the late 90s, early 2000s. But the AI that we're talking about in the context of BIONEXT are these. It's mostly natural language processing, deep learning, and machine learning. And these are grouped together in what we call large language models. And you'll be familiar with these. So things like ChatGPT, things like Gemini, DeepSeek, even Grok, are what you call large language models, and they have huge volumes of users every day. So there's up to 20 million people using, for instance, ChatGPT daily, and that's just in Europe. And a large language model it's a type of artificial intelligence that is good at understanding, interpreting, and providing responses based on huge volumes of text, hence the term large language model. And they're trained on large amounts of data. They're typically trained on all of the internet. And these, when you interact with ChatGPT and you ask it a question and it feels like you're having a conversation with a human or a semi-human, that's a large language model, and that's how they work. And these are the types of AI that we're looking at in BIONEXT. So what we've done with BIONEXT is we're creating a container of outputs. We're putting all of the BIONEXT outputs into a database, into a sealed container. So the AI is only looking at our outputs. It's not scraping all of the internet. And I'll explain why we're doing that in a moment. So we select and control the sources that the AI looks at. We're building a large language model that then looks at that container, it analyzes it, it identifies connections between all of the different text, and it can synthesize and summarize. So it means it can give me responses based on the information that's in the container. And we're doing this in a way that this can be trained and improved using machine learning. So we have real humans who are going to get into this and test this and improve it going forwards. And then we build an interface. This is where you have the chat type interface like ChatGPT. And we using a model that is going to allow quite accurate citations of where the responses come from. And I'll show you a quick demo of that if there's time. There may not be time, we'll see. So that's how the large language model is set up. You have a sealed container, an AI that interprets it, and then an interface we're building that allows you to query this information through the AI. So how is the BIONEXT AI different to ChatGPT? Why would you want to use this when you could use ChatGPT? Well, the most important thing, I think, is that we control the sources that go into our AI. That means that the BIONEXT AI only draws information from what we provide. This allows some of the answers to be more precise, more contextually relevant. It helps to reduce hallucinations. So AIs, if you've used ChatGPT, sometimes it gives you a response that is wrong or contradictory. This will help to avoid that. It also poses some limitations. It means that the AI might not be able to answer all of the questions it receives, but it will hopefully make those answers more accurate where it can provide a good answer. It also means we're using less energy by pointing the AI at a fixed container. It's not looking at all of the internet all of the time. It reduces the amount of energy that we're using. It's open source. So the AI we're developing with KIT, Karlsruhe Institute of Technology in Garmisch in Germany, it's going to be an open source AI. That means anyone, if they want to, can look under the bonnet. They can look at the code. They can make sure there's no bias. It helps to build trust in the AI that we're developing. It means it can be exploited by others and other projects. It can be continually improved, and it can be more easily adapted to other needs. If we can get something working and it works well, this could be exploited by other projects to create a similar output at the end of those projects. And we're also building, with help of partners, a decision support package around the AI. That's going to include guidance on how you can use AI as part of decision-making processes, as part of stakeholder engagement processes. And it also is going to include recommendations on ethical and responsible use of AI. I've got one slide on that at the end if there's time. So this is our timeline. We're looking to get the prototyping. The prototyping is happening now. We're looking to get the testing done in the first quarter of next year. There's then going to be based on the feedback from testing, we'll then review, make improvements, and we're going to launch this towards project end in July next year. If anyone's interested, I can put my email in the chat. You're welcome to get involved in this testing phase if you're interested in AI and you want to test it with us. So I'm going to try a very quick demo here. As usual, when you try and demonstrate any sort of technology online, it normally breaks, but we'll see how this works. I'm just going to switch to a web browser. I'll be super quick. Dana, just let me know if there's not time for this. And if so, I will
go ahead.
Just
go
move
ahead,
on.
Bob. Thank you.
Okay, I'll try and be quick. Just bear with me 1 second whilst I get my browser window open. This won't take long. I'm sure you're all familiar with AI and ChatGPT. So if you can see my screen now, so I'm just going to show you this. This was what we've been using for the early prototyping. I can't show you the AI as it is now because it's not on a public server. But if you're interested in this field, I would recommend having a look at Google Notebook LM. And this is a chat-based AI that we've been using, and this is where we've been taking some of our ideas from. Google Notebook isn't open source. It has limitations, but it's a good example of the type of AI we're building. Super quick, what you see here, this is the container. These are just some example project outputs that I've thrown in a container. That includes the project website there. As you can see, it's a big stack of PDFs. So the AI is only looking at this information, and I can ask questions here. So I've got a question set up. So I'm telling the AI I'm a policymaker. What might be the important actions I can take to support transformative change for biodiversity? So let's get that running. It takes a little time because I'm just using a demo version here. So I'm not at the top of the queue. So like ChatGPT, you can see the AI is now composing an answer, and it's taking the answer just from these PDFs here. It's not scraping all of the internet. So it's giving me an answer. It's telling me that mainstreaming biodiversity, empowering and supporting bottom-up action, redefining justice to be inclusive. These are all key points, etc., etc. And what you can see it's doing is here, it's citing where it's getting its sources from. So in its responses, so this point here about recognition of justice, it's telling me it's drawn that information from these points of these documents. And again, you can see the sources here. So we feel this is important. This allows me to think, well, actually, I don't agree with that. Where have you got that answer from? I can have a look, I can check the text, I can check the reference, I can make my own decision as to whether I trust that answer or not. So that transparency we think is important. And if, say, I want to simplify this for a non-specialist, this is where we think AI has a lot of potential, is I can come to this as someone who's not a policymaker or just a layperson, a member of the public like me, and it can interpret that information for different audiences. So we think AI is going to have a lot of potential for making the outputs of the Horizon program publicly accessible and available to anyone, including educationalists, students, or people in neighborhoods. And you can see it's created a simplified version of that same text. So that's the principle that we're working with. That's the type of AI we're building. Let me just go back to my slides super quick. Let me just move the meme dog out of the way. Yeah, Google Notebook LM, have a look at that. I'd recommend that. It's better than ChatGPT for the type of stuff that you might be doing, is my opinion. And a quick point on ethics. There's a quote here from Professor Stan Openshaw. He's no longer with us, but he was a professor at Leeds University, and he has this good saying that, get computers to do the things that computers are good at, leave people to do the things that people are good at. And that's a very simple way in which we're approaching this. But I'm not going to go through all of these different measures on the left there that you can see, but in implementing this AI, we want to also implement these measures to try and do this in an ethical and environmental way. We're encouraging our community to sort of avoid trivial use of AI. We shouldn't be using ChatGPT instead of Google for just generic searches. It burns carbon, it uses water. Let's be sensible in how we do this. And when we implement this AI, we're going to include advice for users so they get maximum value from our AI, because there is a cost to doing this, and we need to weigh up that cost with the benefits that we get from it. But anyone who's interested in AI, I manage Task Force 1 for the Network Nature project. That's on data, and we're developing some guidance on ethical use of AI for MBS projects and other Horizon projects. So if ethics is also your interest, you can reach out to me and I can involve you in that work as well. And I think that's it. Thanks for listening. Hopefully that wasn't too long.
Thank you so much, Paul. This has been a very interesting talk for everyone. Apparently, there's lots of questions in the chat. Thank you, Biagora, for addressing the elephant in the room of transformative change, because AI does have a huge environmental impact, and we're not talking enough about this, I feel. I was at this presentation the other day from IBES researchers that they were presenting their work, and there was a question from the audience about the use of AI in their expert work. And I was happy to hear that the IBES also is developing some ethical guidelines for the use of AI. So yeah, so I will pass to the questions of the chat. So Alex has two questions. One is a confirmation about whether is it not already possible to manually create a closed container of resources via prompt? She's just checking.
Yeah, you can do. It's safer if you do it in the way that Notebook does it, Google Notebook, because you're basically uploading files to a folder like a shared drive, and then the AI just reads that folder. The difficulty with all of this is that all AIs are trained on all of the internet. So even though you direct the AI to a sealed container, it still has a memory of all of the internet. So it can still hallucinate. It can still bring in answers that are outside of your container, but it minimizes it if you direct the AI just to a sealed box. It reduces that risk. But yeah, that's the downside. Even the open source AI that we're working with is still, the code behind that still has a memory, for want of a better term, of all of the internet. So, and there are biases in AI. There's a lot of papers looking at gender bias and other types of bias in AI. Again, by doing this open source, we can hopefully identify those bias and design them out. But there's bias in human processes as well. So it's, humans are guilty of bias as well as computers.
So Paul, could you please put your email in the chat, because Alex and Sotiris are also interested in testing the tool. I would also be interested in joining the ethical part of your work.
Sounds great.
Yeah. So I think we're finished with today's presentations. This is, I have to say, this is sadly our last seminar of the Transformative Change series. Many of the projects are concluding. We're concluding, as I said, at the end of the year. So I want to remind everyone that the slides will be available and the recording at the BioTrails website. We have heard a lot of very interesting talks, and I think that now it's time for us to join forces to see what we can do together, like how we can integrate all these nice tools. And also, I mean, there's lots of validation still to be done for some of the tools. So I think that's it from me. I hope to see you all in November in our special session. And I don't know if Danai or Ioana wants to say something.
Oh, we're all good. Thank you very much, everyone.
So thank you also to our audience who has followed this webinar. And see you soon, I hope, somewhere else. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Goodbye.